Welcome to the Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live at 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, you can catch any of our other 5 live shows throughout the week. If you happen to miss them, you can catch them and watch them at your own leisure. So make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. If you want to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, you can do so by finding us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chicago. If you want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, you could do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes. Ready? WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. We know it's Friday the 13th, but you decide to troll or do something stupid or trickery, I'm giving Lakeena the full boat to give you the Beer Lane Beer boot.
Bye-bye.
Let's kick off this Friday edition of Second City Sports. We have our first guest. He's now with the CHGO Podcast Network. He's a longtime veteran Chicago baseball writer. He is the one and only Mr. Jared Wyllys. You can follow Jared on Twitter at JWYLLYS. Once again, at JWYLLYS. Jared, welcome to Second City Sports. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you guys today.
No problem. Let's start out on the south side with the White Sox. Of course, they had that 6-game winning streak last week. It was snapped by Josh Naylor and the Cleveland Indians. Of course, they bounced back with the win on Tuesday, but Wednesday's game was postponed due to the Guardians having COVID issues. Of course, last night they got back at it, lost to the Yankees by the score of 15-7. Dylan Cease, one of the top pitchers in baseball, he kind of had it last night with 11 strikeouts, but he gave up 6 runs. What is your assessment about the White Sox right now? Because they're a couple of games off of last year's pace before they really took off. But this year, the circumstances are just a little bit different than a year ago.
Yeah, I think the early impression that I've had of the White Sox is that they're still, we're still kind of waiting for them to find their rhythm. They, obviously they had that 8-game losing streak, but then followed it up with a 6-game winning streak. And so I think we got to see, how things might look at their worst and then how things might look at their best, really kind of back to back. But they're a very talented team that I think is what we're starting to see too, is that they're in a division that is going to be more competitive this year than perhaps it was last year. I think already the level of competition from the Twins has obviously been different. Cleveland has a way of, it doesn't seem to matter who comes or who goes. And, you think they've lost Francisco Lindor and they're not going to compete anymore. And yet here they are continuing to be as pesky as ever. So it's, there's still spots in that division that's going to challenge them in a lot of ways. And so some of this is a matter of them finding their rhythm. A lot of that will come from if they can ever be fully healthy all at the same time. I know every team goes through injuries, but you start the season, Lance Lynn's, not there. Now you've lost Eloy again for a prolonged period of time. I feel like we're always sort of waiting for, when's this team going to be at full strength? Because we know what's possible for that team if all of those guys are healthy. On paper, at least, they're going to be one of the toughest teams to beat in baseball, period. But I think the biggest problem is, A, finding your rhythm, and B, can we all be healthy at the same time?
Also fielding issues too, Jared, because I think they have like 26 errors, like 25 games or something like that. Tim Anderson, who's usually like the most reliable when it comes to fielding, he's had his various issues. Some of the others have as well. So what do you think is behind these, these fielding issues? So it's sort of like the ball's going all over the place.
Yeah, and that's I mean, number one, it's obviously unusual to see, especially Anderson. That's very uncharacteristic defense for him. I think some of that comes from, it might be at least partially a product of, as much as these guys might say that it doesn't impact them, but when you go on an 8-game losing streak, it's impossible to avoid starting to press a little bit. You're trying to make things happen. Whether it's at the plate and you're in the batter's box and you go on a little bit of a slump, hitting wise, and you're trying to create the hits rather than sticking to your game plan. I think you see that on defense too, where guys like Anderson, there is this sense of I've got to step it up a little bit, or I've got to really work to make this play, and that causes little mental mistakes that happen where they're thinking a step ahead. We've all done that thing where maybe we're playing some backyard football and we catch the pass and we can sense open field ahead of us, and you start to turn to head for the end zone before you fully have the ball in your hands. It's kind of like that where just mentally, because you're thinking I've got to make this play, here's the play, rather than for a guy like Tim Anderson, he can just rely on his muscle memory. He's done this so many times. It's just make the routine play. So I think as they start to win more, you're going to start to see the defense really level out and get back to what we're used to seeing from some of these guys. Once they're mentally, at least, they're not in a place where they feel like I've got to create.
Veteran baseball writer for CHGO, Jared Wyllys, is joining us right here on Second City Sports, live and in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you, talking Chicago baseball. Let's stick with the White Sox. Jared, Tony La Russa, we all know his resume by now. Of course, some White Sox fans like him, many of them don't. Of course, this year is magnified due to that 8-game losing streak as you just mentioned. Right now, do you feel like we know that this team is led by Tim Anderson with the attitude, with the swag? Of course, you have Giolito and Dylan Cease as well. Of course, at times you see this team is pressing. This team is trying to come out their funk. But I know a lot of their attitudes has changed due to the impact of Tony La Russa, both good and bad. Right now, do you see this clubhouse being lost right now, or is sticking together despite the impact of Tony La Russa?
Yeah, my impression has always been, both last year and this year, is that they don't seem to be impacted, certainly not negatively. Nothing that they've shown has made me think that. This year's been a little different because for the first time in a few seasons, as reporters, we're back inside the clubhouse. So last year, our interactions were confined to Zoom interviews or on-field interviews, which is a little different because you don't get the same level of interaction. So particularly, what I watch for is, when you go into a clubhouse after a loss, what's the vibe in that room? How are these guys acting? And, I was at a couple of those games during that losing streak. And a lot of what I saw was guys who were taking ownership over, these are the mistakes that I made. This is where I came up short. I'm working on this so that I can be better next time. Dallas Keuchel is, for all of his struggles on the mound, he is somebody who's consistently been good about that. And so when I see things like that, that to me says, Tony La Russa maybe has his flaws as a manager, but as far as the mentality in the clubhouse, that does not come across like a clubhouse that is not unified or doesn't have like a shared sense of vision for where they're trying to go and what they're trying to accomplish. And also not one that is getting too down during a losing streak. It's mellow in there after they lose, but this isn't like we're giving up, where the wheels are coming off. It does not read that way at all.
Let's go to the north side for a second, Jared. Just when people were kind of like ambivalent about the Cubs, they end up winning 2 out of 3 from the Padres. Go figure. Sort of like they have that deal. They have really good players. Of course, you got Schwindel, you got Rivas, who was a big part of what happened in that Padres series. Not that, they're not going to contend, obviously, but do you think they have sort of the talent to kind of like give teams kind of like a run?
Yeah, I think at their best, they have the potential for, 75 win team or so, which is good enough to cause trouble for other teams in the division. Like you said, they're not going to compete. This is not a contending team, at least not the way they're constructed now. But they've got some pockets of talent where, yeah, they can present trouble to other teams. But their lack of depth, especially in the infield, is they get injuries in the infield and they don't have backup second basemen and shortstops. That becomes an issue really quickly. There's definitely some holes in the lineup that show up. And for as good as they look when they're beating the Padres in a series, then you have the 2 days against the Dodgers where it was just like they didn't even show up. So to see them lose, I thought the whole homestand, I think they lost that entire homestand. It was the White Sox and then the Dodgers, and they went 0-5 at Wrigley. Like, when's the last time you saw the Cubs do that? For as bad as they've been, in past years, to see them just get shut out on a homestand like that, that's that you don't see that very often. So at their best, they might be 70, 75 wins, but at their worst, it can get ugly pretty fast.
Speaking of the veterans on the Northsiders, Jared, I want to focus in on Willson Contreras and Cal Hendricks. Looks like both of those guys.
Happy birthday, Wilson. It's his birthday today. I think he turns like 29 today.
Yeah.
Speaking of both of those veterans, looks like both of them are starting to turn around. Kyle Hendricks had a good enough start in his last start against the Padres on Monday. Of course, Willson Contreras has had a couple of home runs in his last few games. Assuming that the Cubs are really out of it by the time the trade deadline comes, do you see one or both of them being headed out of here, out of town?
As much as Cubs fans are going to hate to hear it, Willson Contreras, he's got trade candidate written all over him. Given his contract situation, given the fact that they've not really worked on an extension leading into the season, and then Jed Hoyer has said that's not something we're going to do or talk about during the season, it just feels like come July, Willson Contreras is headed somewhere else. And it's painful for fans because you have this core of players that won the World Series 6 years ago, and you get really attached to this group of guys. And so it's tough to see them leave like this. They went through it some last year with, that core group of three of Rizzo and Bryant and Baez, and then now it's probably Contreras. So I think it's very, very unlikely that he is still in a Cubs uniform come August. Hendricks, on the other hand, they still have a couple years on his contract extension, and I don't really see a scenario where he gets traded, but honestly, depending on how bad things get, if they're really losing badly, then that might be another move that gets made, because their farm system, the Cubs farm system, is starting to get interesting again because of some of these trades they've made in years past, where you're looking at some of these farm teams and you're like, hey, there's actually some good players there. So this might be the time, too, to really capitalize and beef up that farm system so that you're ready to contend again quickly in the next couple of years.
Should be interesting to see where direction they go. Now let's talk about baseball as a whole, Jared. You look at the Yankees and what they've done. They've won 4 in a row, but the Astros are starting to heat up. They've won 10 in a row. Minnesota, what they've been doing. I know they've lost 3 in a row, but they've still been pretty good. Who's been your biggest surprise and biggest disappointment so far?
Surprise-wise, I think it's been fun to see what the Angels have done this season. It's a team that, because of the guys on the team, it's hard not to want to see them be successful. I want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs. I want to see Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs. I keep telling people, you watch Ohtani, you're watching like a once-in-a-generation talent, maybe a once-ever talent. So I want to see that guy in October. So I like seeing the Angels do well like this. And so I hope it continues. We'll see. We're still so early in the season that stuff can change over time. But that's been a nice surprise for them. And I don't know, there's a few different teams that I thought would do a little better than they have, that I've been surprised at how poorly they've done. One of them, honestly, is Detroit. I didn't have high expectations for the Tigers, but I kind of had them as sort of they could end up being a little bit of a sleeper team, surprise some people. You get Baez, you start to get some of these talented guys coming up out of their farm system. I kind of thought Detroit would look a little better this first month or so, and that just hasn't happened. It's been fun to see what Cabrera has done and the milestones that he's been achieving this season. But yeah, as a team, they're just not quite come together and done what I thought they might.
Veteran baseball writer for CHGO, Jared Wyllys, is joining us right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. Sid, Lakeena here with you on Sports Zone Chicago, live in 11 color. Staying with the national scene, Jared, I want to go to the New York area and talk about the other team in town, the New York Mets, of course. Buck Showalter comes back from the broadcasting booth, and he has the Mets up there in the National League battling the Dodgers and the Braves. I want to ask you, can we, even though Jacob deGrom is hurt again, but Francisco Lindor is taking over, and you have some other guys like Pete Alonso finally stepping up again. Can we finally take the Mets seriously in the National League?
There's something about that team that I feel like I've learned over the years to just never have any expectations for what the Mets might do, because there have been so many times when I think they've got this. This is a year that they're really going to do something, and it's like they just can't get out of their own way sometimes. Mm-hmm. So you're right, though. I mean, you get the new manager in place. Lindor finally looks comfortable. I'm sure the transition from a smaller market in Cleveland to New York, it takes some getting used to. So, but yeah, he finally looks comfortable. I want to say like, oh yeah, this is they're going to make a race at this division, but it's the Mets, so you never know.
Well, let's talk about sort of like a sure thing. I'm going to air quotes here, sure thing, if you will. The NL West is always wild. I know the Dodgers have lost a couple in a row. The Padres, even though they lost, 2 out of 3 to the Cubs, and the Giants have, suddenly they've won 5 in a row. Where do you see the NL West? I think it's really gonna come down to probably like maybe the last week of the season.
It could, because that's always an interesting division to follow, because consistently you look at the Dodgers and on paper it's like this, they should be in their own league. It seems almost unfair that you have the Dodgers and pretty much everybody else, and yet the Giants always find a way they did it last year where they hang in there with them and compete with them. The Padres were a little bit of a disappointment last season because here they'd assembled this really talented team, but it didn't, kind of like we talked about with some other teams, didn't quite work. But, the Padres can compete. But honestly, I think, the Dodgers, they're going to be so hard to touch because you add Freddie Freeman to that roster. You add Freddie Freeman to that lineup that was already so potent. And it's just where I watched it at Wrigley last weekend. Where do you get the outs against that group? He makes it so much more difficult because you have some guys in that lineup that aren't quite hitting yet. Like Bellinger is still, he's not heated up yet. So there's Justin Turner's not hitting all that well, and they're still winning. So when that starts to come together, it's so hard to envision anybody touching the Dodgers. I did see today that Kershaw went on the IL. I don't know yet how serious it is, but if they do lose Kershaw for an extended period of time, they still have pitching depth with guys like Walker Buehler, but that is a big loss to lose Kershaw out of your rotation. But yeah, I think the Dodgers they look like a World Series team to me.
Speaking of World Series scenes, of course, we all know the rebuilding process in baseball takes a few years. We saw what the Astros did a few years ago, along with the Chicago Cubs. The White Sox are going through it right now. Hopefully, a World Series is in their future. Of course, on the flip side, you have Kansas City, Oakland, and Cincinnati. Those two franchises, especially in Cincinnati. I know they won a couple of games this week, but that franchise is in a horrible state. They put themselves in there. Oakland, rumor has it that they may be moving to Vegas in a few years. Who knows what's going on with that? Give us your take about the state of the franchises with Oakland and Cincinnati. It's really a shame what's going on with those two franchises, both proud baseball franchises.
Yeah, Sydney, I think the word you used is perfect. It's a shame. It's sad for the sport, especially I think about Cincinnati, and that is the oldest professional franchise in baseball. Major League Baseball in some sense started with the Cincinnati Reds. And with the proud history that franchise has, the success that they've had. Now, granted, it's been since the 70s, the Big Red Machine, but there's such a deep history with that organization. To have an owner say things like, oh, well, we'll just move, we'll go somewhere else, we'll move the team, that just feels like even you as the owner are not understanding the significance of this franchise and what it means to be the Cincinnati Reds. So it is, it's frustrating to see them in this state. It just, again, I'll use your word because it's the perfect one. It's a shame. The same for Oakland. I mean, Oakland, yes, they've not had the longevity of being in the same city for their entire history because, you go back, that's Kansas City and Philadelphia before they were there.
Mm-hmm.
But for that community in the Bay Area, for the city of Oakland, like that's a fan base that has been loyal to this team despite not having the best stadium, despite at times not having the best teams on the field. That's a very rabid and loyal fan base, and really, frankly, they deserve better. And so the same thing with the Oakland Athletics. I'd like to see them stay in that community because I think you don't want to see a whole group of people lose access to a pro sports franchise. I'd rather see expansion rather than somebody like the Athletics moving to another city. Build a new stadium in Oakland and stay there instead of heading off somewhere else. And so with them, they got famous because of, well, they didn't get famous, but I think of late, they got some notoriety for the Moneyball approach to the game. But in some ways, it kind of provided an excuse to be cheap. And that's now, I think that's backfiring to some degree where, the time is come and gone. You're past due to really invest in this roster and put together a team for that fan base that really deserves it.
And both fans do definitely deserve better product on the field. Now, Seattle and Toronto, Sid knows this. They were my teams to pick to be right there in the playoffs. They're both under 5. Well, Toronto's lost 4 in a row. Seattle's under 500 right now. Can they both get it together, Jared? Please tell me they can. Please.
Well, as far as Toronto's concerned, yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to feel good about what the team could do. Division's going to be tough because of the Yankees, because of the Rays. If Boston ever gets their act together, that's a tough division. But yeah, Toronto is loaded with talent and loaded with young talent. Kind of like with the Dodgers, there's an offense there that can really put up some runs. There's hard outs to get against that group. So I like what Toronto could do as the season progresses. I think Seattle had one of the most interesting off seasons because it was sort of like they just poached the Reds roster and said, "Oh yeah, you don't want these guys anymore? We'll take them." Mm-hmm. And you get Suarez, you get Jesse Winker. I mean, they really had a great off season, but that's in some ways that's kind of Seattle's MO. Like they do a lot of things well on paper, but then it's hard to make it all come together, and that's a tough division too. So between those two teams, I think Toronto is much more likely to put together a run and make a threat at the postseason.
Last minute or two with Jared Wyllys from CHGO, who covers baseball for that great site, is joining us right here on Second City Sports, live in the living color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Jared, last question from me. Of course, tonight's Cubs Diamondbacks game will be exclusively on Apple TV Plus. Of course, Peacock, it was on EBC last week, the Red Sox and White Sox, but Peacock will start exclusively with their Sunday leadoff coverage with exclusive games. Of course, MLB TV has been the home for satellite for years, but if you live in the state of Iowa, you cannot watch 5 teams, including both of our Chicago teams, which is ridiculous. I know you're shaking your head. We both agree with you, but where do you see this going, Jerry, with this exclusive rights for streaming coverage for games? Because I know both locally here in Chicago, both NBC Sports Chicago and the Marquee Sports Network had talked about having exclusive streaming services for fans paying between $18 and $20 a month. I think, me personally, that's just too much. It could be an option, but not an exclusive option. Where do you stand in all this? And is Major League Baseball excluding a section of their fan base?
Yeah, it's an interesting move because I like what it could become. I think right now we're in this kind of very awkward beginning stage. I know that first Friday night that the White Sox were on Apple TV Plus, there were a lot of people confused about, well, wait, how do I watch this? What do I need to do? How do I find this? Because you do have it. The reality is in baseball, your average fan is older. And so people who are not used to streaming things through their apps, not used to watching stuff on their phone or their iPads. But I think that's at the same time, that's part of the reason why this is a move that has some positive potential, because if you're trying to reach younger fans, what younger fans want to do is be able to access their teams in a more like mobile sense. So if I can watch the game on my phone while I'm going here, going there, doing this, younger fans are more likely to do that. Yeah, I can pull up an app and watch the White Sox or the Cubs. A younger fan's going to do that. And so I think it's a move that, has positive potential for the future. We just have to get through some of these early hiccups as people get used to it. I don't love the idea of like a high monthly price for an exclusive streaming service from Marquee or NBC. It is nice right now that it's incorporated into like your cable bill, but 20 years from now, how many people are still going to be paying for cable? I don't know. But grand scheme of things, I do like the idea of, let me pull up Apple TV Plus on Friday night, wherever I am, and I can watch my team. I think it's a good thing in the long run.
We'll see what happens from there. Last question from me. I see you're a big cigar and Kentucky basketball fan. Your favorite cigar and your favorite Kentucky player from any era?
Well, I'll start with a Kentucky player because I loved Tayshaun Prince back when he played for Kentucky. That's going back a ways, like 20 years or so. But he was, because I was in high school and college at the time that he was playing. And so it felt kind of like, we were close to the same age. So he was always a favorite. I loved watching that guy play. So to this day, he's still one of my favorites. A little more recently, I love John Wall. That Kentucky team of 2010 or so, they were so much fun to watch. So I really liked him. I've followed his pro career since then. Cigar wise, my absolute favorite is a La Fontana. That's you get a Connecticut wrapper, so it's a little bit lighter. Most of the time I have the Maduro wrappers, but La Fontana, for anybody who's maybe a beginner looking to get into it, grab yourself one of those. You won't be disappointed.
All right, that's been veteran baseball writer Jared Wyllys, now with CHGO, right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow Jared Wyllys on Twitter at JWYLLYS. Once again, at JWYLLYS. You can go to allchgo.com to catch his articles. Jared, thank you very much for joining us today. Great job, and let's do this again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, take care.
All right, that's Jared Wyllys from CHGO Baseball Insider. Now we've got a little bit of time so before we go to break. What kind of caught your attention? What caught your eye in baseball this week?
Oh, the no-hitter that the Angels tossed out the other day against the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm trying to get the name of the person. I'll pull it up in just a minute. But it's, I believe this is the first one of the year. Reed Detmers is his name, who tossed the no-hitter. Of course, Mike Trout hit another monster home run during that game, as Jared talked about during our interview. The Angels, looks like as of right now, they're going to be for real. The Houston Astros are going to have something to say about it. I think the question is for the Angels, will they have enough starting pitching? They have the offense, but will they have enough starting pitching? And as of right now, going back to the Southsiders, thank goodness you split that 4-game series in late April against the Angels, because right now, those 2 wins against the Angels are, even though it's still kind of early saving your season, but that's what caught my eye in baseball this week.
Yeah, definitely that no-hitter. I think he is a rookie, and this is his first, the first of the year. I think this is the 11th or 12th in Angels history. So really, dominant performance on his part. Also, Justin Verlander, what he did a couple of days ago, he had a no-hit bid through a little over 7 innings. He got the win, and the fact that he's been able to come back after 2 years of almost 2 years of not playing because of injury, that's pretty impressive too. And like I said, I think the Astros are, they've won 10 in a row, like we talked about with Jared earlier. So I think they're starting to kind of get it going. So we'll see what happens. In that front, because they've got an interesting series coming up. Going through the schedule real quick before we go back, and we're up against it. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. You got Milwaukee and Miami.
The paper bag series.
Yeah, that's
talking about Cincinnati.
Oh yeah. I mean, two stinky teams in the NL Central. Milwaukee and Miami, Houston and Washington, Baltimore and Detroit, Seattle and the Mets. That should be an interesting one. Should be a good one here.
Mhm.
Toronto and Tampa in the AL East.
Yes.
We'll see if Toronto can kind of snap that streak and little loser streak that they're on. Tampa's head up in it now week as well. San Diego will try to bounce back from losing that series to the Cubs. They face Atlanta this weekend. That should be a good series. Boston and Texas. Boston's been underachieving. We'll see if they can get it together. Cleveland
They
and
come in
Minnesota.
next week to face the White Sox.
Yes, they are. So we'll see. Cleveland and Minnesota. Hopefully, everything's okay because they've had a mini COVID outbreak this week. New York and Chicago, of course. The Sox. We'll see if the Sox can bounce back. 14-7. Also, a note about the San Diego Atlanta series. The first game will be part of the Apple TV Plus doubleheader. A little note there. San Diego and San Francisco, I should say, and St. Louis, Kansas City and Colorado. The Angels and the A's. We'll see how many people are there at the A's. There might be less than 3,000. Chicago and Arizona. That's the second game of the Apple TV Plus doubleheader. I don't know how that happened, but okay. And should be a good one here. Philadelphia and Los Angeles. Phillies already taken game one of that series, so that should be a good one.
Yeah, their bullpen, I told you I'm not a big fan of theirs. They blew that 7-1 lead last night, but they got it back together at the top of the ninth.
They hung on.
Yeah, so kudos to Joe Girardi and crew. So that's your schedule for the world of Major League Baseball this weekend. Lakeena, we had to take our 2-2 break. When we return, we'll review the NBA playoffs for you. One series is in the books. We have one Game 7 on the horizon. Could we have a couple of more? All that and a whole lot more as we jump into the world of basketball. You're listening to the Friday edition of Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee, and we're going to go into NBA talk here in just a second. But you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Cindy Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
All right, Sid. So we'll go through last night's action for a second. Of course, first off, we'll do the number one seed in the East, Miami, taking care of business. They won their series against Philadelphia 99-90. They're going back to the Eastern Conference Finals once again. Jimmy Butler had 32 points. Max Strauss, kicked in with 20 for the Heat. Now on the flip side, for the the Sixers, you had Joel Embiid had 20 points, and Tyrese Maxey also had 20 points, but it wasn't enough. Shake Milton had 15 off the bench, but that wasn't enough too, as Harden struggled. And let's just say Embiid had a little interesting presser afterwards. We'll get to that in a second, but what did you think about that series? The wrap up of that series, I should say.
Jimmy Butler was the main man for Miami, as you mentioned. He took the game over, especially in that fourth quarter. It was a tight first half, but Philadelphia has some careless possessions, some careless turnovers. We told you guys all season long that the Miami Heat, led by head coach Eric Spoelstra, is if not the best defensive team in the NBA. And you saw that last night, especially in that second half. During that third quarter, when Miami, in my opinion, put that game away. James Harden was a no-show once again. He only had 2 shot attempts in the second half. He had a horrible night. I know everybody wants to talk about Joel Embiid's 7 for 24 performance, but James Harden's performance was even worse. And you really didn't get any help from anybody else on that team. Could have been Doc Rivers' last game as coach of the Sixers. We'll soon find out in the days and weeks and perhaps some months ahead. But wrapping up Game 6, Miami played together as a team. As I mentioned, Jimmy Butler took over in that second half. Bam Adebayo had a great game. And also, you had some great outside shooting for the Miami Heat as well. They ended up shooting for 41% for the game. But you could tell that these guys really played together as a unit. And no one wants to outshine anyone. You really don't have any big names on the team outside of Jimmy Butler. So these players who are on their roster, they know their role. They do it to almost close to perfection, and that's why they've been having the success they've been having over the last couple of years. Now, you mentioned they're going back to the Eastern Conference Finals. I know people want to dismiss their run in the bubble a couple of years ago, but what they did a couple of years ago was a precursor to what they are on now. So you have to take this team seriously.
Yes, you do. And I think, look, their defense is what kind of, set the tone for them early on in that game. And like I said before, I mean, I think that he sort of is showing you that, look, that COVID time that they went to the finals, that wasn't a fluke, and they're showing you why. Now, as far as the Sixers are concerned, I mean, I think in B's comments, I want to kind of clean up on that he said that when the Sixers traded for Harden, they thought they were going to get Harden from Houston. That's just hasn't been the case. So I don't know what's going on there. The Sixers, I saw, Sixers Twitter as I kind of peek in there because I know a couple of friends who are Sixers fans. Some of them are already saying that maybe Jay Wright may want to come out of retirement and perhaps coach.
You don't want to deal with that mess.
Yeah, no, not at all. Because that rumor's been going on for like the last 5 or 6 years. So this wouldn't be the first year. But I know Doc Rivers, he is not very happy right now, and saw what happened. They basically sort of got rid of Simmons, but then Harden wasn't, contributing much as well. He has up and down struggles. So I think in this case for the Sixers, I think they kind of have to think about the process and think about what they need to do, because it doesn't like they don't have the you thought Will was the coach. Turns out it's not really the coach. It turns out maybe it's the core or whatever. So that's something I have to think about during the off season. As for the Heat, I mean, I think the Heat, look, I had the Heat going to the finals. I mean, proven again, that I was might have been right. They're getting a lot of contributions from all sides with Tucker and Bam. And I know Bam struggled, but he had some key stops. I know Greg Vincent and Oladipo's been got Tyler Hero. Yeah, he struggled, but he did what he needed to do. Duncan Robinson and such. I know he didn't score, but he kind of had his struggles. But look, they have an overall good team in Miami, and I think Miami needs to kind of people need to give Miami their props.
Just a couple more nuggets from last night's clincher from the Heat. They out-rebounded Philadelphia by 14, 49-35. In total points in the paint, 62-48. Outside of Embiid, Philadelphia really doesn't have anybody that can score within the paint. They don't really have a guard that can break you down to get to the cup. Miami has that, as you mentioned, when Kyle Lowry's healthy, but Bam Adebayo, both offensively and defensively, first, he's a threat in the paint. You mentioned the outside shooting for the Heat. They have it as well. So Miami was the better team in this series. They won it. Now they're going to await the winner of Boston and Milwaukee. We'll get to that series in just a couple of moments. But we both been on the same bandwagon, looking by Miami being in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yours truly had them in the NBA Finals against Phoenix. So my pick for Miami is still on track. But Miami was the better team last night, and they deserve to be there. They earned it. I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but if you really know basketball, it's not a surprise to see them having this type of success. 2 years ago, which was not a fluke, folks. It wasn't. I know they got swept out of the first round last year by the now defending NBA champion Bucks, but should they face the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, I guarantee you this: whoever wins it, they're going to have to earn it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and we'll see what happens. Should be a fun one. Whoever it ends up being, whether it's the Celtics or the Bucks, we'll get to that in a second. Now, as for the Suns, they're the Mavs forced a Game 7, 113-86 the final. There, Luka had 33, and Reggie Bullock has to be like a career playoff high for him at 19. And look, I'm gonna say this about the Mavs: that the Mavs did what you're supposed to do when you're up against it. You play well, you jump on them late. It seems like the Suns were very, I don't want to say lax, but it kind of felt like they were sort of, just sleepwalking through that whole game. And I know that they probably feel like, well, those Game 7's at home and the things can happen. But look, games can happen in Game 7. So again, we'll get to that in a second. But I kind of feel like Mavs play with a little bit of urgency, but the Suns should have been playing with more urgency as well.
And now that makes Dallas 3-0 in this series at home. Of course, Phoenix, the best road team in the NBA during the regular season, now 0-3 against Dallas in this series on the road. But last night, the Dallas Mavericks were again shooting hot, especially from the field. They shot 45% for the game, 41 from 3. So that was the telling side that it was going to be their night. As you mentioned, Phoenix, they just couldn't keep up. Chris Paul, he tried, but he really didn't get any help. I know Devin Booker tried to get the Suns back in the game, but it just wasn't meant to be. You mentioned the home court advantage. That's been the story in the series. Dallas has played with a little bit more urgency at home as they have on the road. Now, Game 1, Dallas had a chance to steal that one. They didn't, but their last two games in Phoenix, Games 2 and 5, they didn't show up, especially in the second half there. So Dallas is going to have to play a full 48-minute game on Sunday to steal and win in Phoenix in Game 7.
Yeah, and they're I think the Suns are banking on the fact that they thought about what happened in Game 5. Maybe that's why. But again, 3 things happened in Game 7, so I don't know what to say about that. Now, if the Suns end up losing to the Mavs on tomorrow, that's on them. But that's another conversation. Luka, has averaged 39 points when facing elimination in his career. That's the highest scoring average in these situations. That's the minimum of 3 games. So the fact that he's been able to do this, just a testament to him and how good he is. So again, we'll see what happens on Saturday, tomorrow. But again, I just think that there's a lot of weird things that have been happening in this series. So you force Game 7, you're Dallas, but it doesn't mean anything because you have to win on the road. If you win on the road, great. If not, you still end up losing. The 7 game kind of like it's sort of redundant, but that's a whole nother story. Going to the games tonight. Both, facing, we'll start with the Boston-Milwaukee series they played tonight in Milwaukee. That really strange ending of that game. The Marcus Smart, whatever you want to call him.
Marcus Smart, RIP Tom Heinsohn.
Yeah. The meme, people were using like the Sound of Music memes and all types of stuff. It was just, crazy. But I just look, if you're Boston, especially you're wasting Al Horford. That's Florida's Al Horford that you're seeing, these last couple of games. Another 30 points. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough because Smart couldn't hold on to it. But look, a true holiday. I mean, he became the first player over the last 25 postseasons to record a block and a steal inside the last 10 seconds of the fourth quarter of a playoff game. So that's a testament to why he's been all defensive team these last few years. But again, if you're Boston, you're kicking yourself because you had your shot to perhaps you could be playing to clinch the series. But
here's the thing about the end of that Game 5 on Wednesday, Lakeena. Boston was up 6 after that tip dunk by Al Horford with less than 2 minutes to go. I said to myself, it's going to be close, but Boston should hang on because they were controlling the majority of the game.
Though.
Right. Even when You're right.
You're
Even
not.
Milwaukee was making their run up until that point. Boston still had enough to hang on. But as we said before, Lakeena, we'll say it again. You have to execute down the stretch. You got to know the situations. And if you know the situation, you'll do the right thing 9 times out of 10. Boston didn't do that. Milwaukee did. And that's why Milwaukee ended up stealing game 5 on the road. Also, to another crucial play, Giannis at the free throw line with 10 seconds to go. Made the first one, missed the second. If you grab that rebound, if you're Boston, you still won the game. But gave up an offensive rebound. Bobby Portis laid it in. Of course, that Marcus Smart play happened. Missing Jason Tatum, who was wide open on the right side of the wing. Yeah, he had an open shot. Would he have made it? It's a 50-50 shot, but he would have had enough time to take a decent shot.
He had a good look for it, too. That's probably why he was able to kind of, get in there. But look, so many opportunities, missed chances. And look, I think if you're Boston, like, you got to play with a little bit of urgency tonight. Because if the Bucks, go into a first few minutes of the game, especially if they get into a rhythm early, I'm talking about the Bucks. This game could be over with, and this series could be over with, very quick. So, because could be bye Boston tonight.
Yeah, Boston is going to have to take that momentum, what they did in Game 4 when they won on the road. Al Horford, like you said, had the game on his side, the Florida Gator Al Horford, and so they're going to have to bring it tonight because their backs are against the wall. I want to focus in on the flip side for Milwaukee. Their role players, especially what they did in Game 5. We mentioned Bobby Portis, 14 points, 15 rebounds. Pat Connaughton had 13 big points off the bench, including a big 3-point shot during the latter stages of that game. As we mentioned before, Lakeena, the role players going to have to step in and step up with the absence of Chris Middleton. Grayson Allen has been MIA these last few games, but Connaughton and Bobby Portis that I mentioned just a moment ago, they had picked it up big time to help out Giannis Antetokounmpo. And so you have to watch out for those players tonight.
Well, yeah, and also, too, I think the role players for the Celtics. I mean, I know that Robert Williams has been up and down with that injury, but
yeah, that's really hurt Boston, too.
That's kind of like the momentum there, and I think he's been sort of like that guy on the defensive front. So I'm one in that interior defense, especially. That's kind of been sort of their Achilles heel for Boston. So who knows if he had been healthy? Who knows how far this team would be at right now? But look, Brown and Tatum, yeah, of course they got to do their thing, absolutely. But they're your other role guys. Smart, get whatever that thing was that happened, get it out of your head.
Yeah.
And also, too, some of your other players, Horford, hopefully Horford can still get that, that sort of like that, that Florida game.
Yeah, ice up those knees. Ice up, son.
Probably going to have to. Daniel Tice, who I'm still bummed that the Bulls couldn't keep him, but
I know,
maybe he should step up a little bit more. Grant Williams, I mean, yes, you had a big goose egg. You could have helped out a little bit. You need to help out more tonight. So, especially in relief of Robert Williams. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting game, and we'll see, what Boston's made of, if they can kind of show a little bit of fight that Dallas did. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. You're listening to the Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you talking NBA playoff basketball. The other series, which will take place tonight at 8:30, I believe, on ESPN, is the Golden State Memphis series. Of course, on Wednesday night, the Memphis Grizzlies kept their season alive. They're 21-6, including the playoffs, without John Morant in the lineup. They blew out the Golden State Warriors 134-95. Where's what's that? Terrence Howard where you need him?
Yeah, right.
With that big old mustache and that ugly afro in that little hat. But anywho, the Memphis Grizzlies got contributions up there down the roster. Jared Jackson, who yours surely talked about in our last show on Monday. He stepped up with 21 points and 8 rebounds. Dillon Brooks had 12 points, 4 rebounds. He didn't have Draymond Green to mug him all night, so he had a good game there. Also, too, off the bench, Brandon Clark had 11 points and 7 rebounds. Melton had 10 points, and Williamson had 11 points off the bench. So it was an all-around team effort for Memphis. As we said before, Lakeena, they do need John Morant for the long haul. He may miss the rest of the playoffs. We'll see. But they played better without him, especially defensively. We saw that on Wednesday.
Yeah, we did. And look, look, that's sort of the epitome of playing with your backs against the wall. And then the Grizzlies showed that. I think the Warriors, again, sort of the same thing. They kind of slept walk especially once, I think it was Brooks that hit that, big three that kind of like, kicked in that run in the gear for the Grizzlies. The Warriors were probably like, okay, you know what? We got like next game's on the road. So, I mean, at home. So we'll try to just win it out and just burn the tape. And that's what hopefully that's what happens with them tonight. But, yeah, I think, because if you saw, they actually played that song, I think during like the fourth quarter. And I guess, Draymond was dancing. And I thought, you know what? Hey, look, if it works for them, I mean, I think you kind of have to, just, burn the tape. And remember, too, they're still without Steve Kerr, who has COVID. So you got Mike Brown taking over there. So it'll be interesting to see I don't think the Warriors are going to lose by 55 tonight.
No.
Even still, I think they're going to win the series tonight. I think they realize that they can't risk this going to Game 7. Because these guys are veterans, the core of this group. They know what can happen in the Game 7. They've been through it.
Yes.
So I think if you're the Warriors, you better try to end it tonight.
And also, too, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson combined for barely over 30 points. That cannot happen. I know Klay had 19, Steph had 14, so that's a total of 33. So that cannot happen again tonight. Of course, Golden State's at home. They're at the Chase Center. They have one of the best home court advantages in the NBA. So I expect those two, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, to both lead the way tonight. Both of them, I believe, will have big games. And you need guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, and Andrew Wiggins, who's a first-time All-Star this year, to step up as well. And so, but it all starts with Klay and Steph. Both those guys get it going, especially early. The other players that I mentioned just a moment ago will start to fall into place, and the Warriors should cruise to a win. But I expect Memphis to pull up another fight tonight.
Yeah, I think they will. Look, I think they'll keep it close to the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
But again, that experience for the Warriors, I feel like is what's going to propel them. I don't think they're going to want to risk, this going to a Game 7. They don't want to do that. The Warriors, they lived through that before and they lost. Cleveland circa 2017. So I don't know if they're going to want to do that. So we'll see what happens in that game. Now, the good news is if you're a Suns fan, the Suns get the extra day off, so they don't play till Sunday. Again, times is going to be determined on what happens in tonight's game between the Bucks and the Celtics. We'll see. They may be the later game. That might be the early game. We don't know. But I think having that extra time, extra day, I think could help them, especially CP3 being 37 now. I think Dallas will keep it close like they did in Game 1. But I think in the end, I feel like the Suns, with the experience, is probably going to come in and they'll probably play well enough, especially with that extra day off.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, what are your keys to the Game 7 between Dallas and Phoenix on Sunday? For me, DeAndre Ayton must set the tone, especially on the offensive end, because when he has it going on, no one can match up against him in the paint. And CP3, I think he'll be fine. Devin Booker, I know he's still working his way through his hamstring. And like I say, I know he tried to get Phoenix going last night, but they were just too far behind. But for me, for Phoenix, it starts with DeAndre Ayton. Once he dominates in the post, no one can stop him, especially in this series against Dallas. You saw the statistics. When Phoenix wins, DeAndre Ayton has a big impact. When they lose, his numbers are not that great. We saw what he did last year on their march to the finals. I want DeAndre Ayton to dominate in the paint, so I expect him to do that. Now for Dallas, they can shoot the ball well at home. Once again, their 3 home wins, they shoot the ball over 45%. Their three games so far in Phoenix, not so hot. Who's going to help out Luka Doncic? And will they get to every loose ball? Because it all comes down to the little things in the close plays, Lakeena, as you know, in the Game 7. So I think Luka is going to bring it, but who's going to bring it with him? Will it be Dorian Finney-Smith? Reggie Bullock has been a nice surprise in this series. Kleber has been a nice surprise in this series. Spencer Dinwiddie knocked down a couple of shots last night. So who's going to be that number 2 guy to help out Luka?
Well, yeah, I think that's going to be the key. And also, too, I would say Jake Crowder. I mean, this is his first rodeo in the playoffs, and he needs to sort of step it up and kind of make some big shots. Mikal Bridges, I think he needs to step up as well, because I think he's been struggling the last couple of games, and he needs to sort of step it up as well, hit some big shots. So this could be, like I said, it'll be close, but like I said, I think experience will help the Suns, propel it. I guess also to having the extra day off will help Chris Paul. I know because he's been struggling the last couple of games, even when in Game 5 that they won. So I think this will be an interesting this will be a close game 7, but I think the Suns will pull away late in this one. So we really can't talk about the Celtics and Bucks because they haven't played game 6. They haven't played game 6 yet, so we'll have to wait and see if the Suns force a game 7 tonight. But
game 7 would be necessary if Boston wins tonight. Would be necessary if Boston wins tonight.
Yeah, and also too the timing of it too. I mean, it might be the Celtics and Bucks. They might be the 2:30 game, but it might Suns and Mavs might get that slot too. So it all depends on what happens tonight. So it'll be interesting what happens there. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sydney Brown, Lakeena McGee here with you guys. I wish we had a sounder here because we have our Zach Levine rumor of the week or rumor of the day, or something like that. I don't know what that was, but interesting.
I tried.
An interesting rumor here. I guess you got the now we're hearing Portland, and now we're hearing the Lakers. So
I saw that Lakers trade proposal via Keyshawn Johnson of ESPN and ESPN Radio. First of all, someone said this on Twitter, and I did look this up. If you're a team trading a first-round pick, you cannot do it in consecutive years. That's not going to fly. And the other players that were offered in that trade, I don't think the Bulls will want them. No.
Julius Randle and Evan Fournier are the
Evan Fournier could help out the Bulls because he's a shooter.
Right.
I give him that. But it was a 3-team trade, Lakers, Knicks, and Bulls. But Julius Randle, we talked about all season, Lakeena. He was an all-star last year. He was the NBA's most improved player, and rightfully so. This year, it's been a complete 180. Do you want that type of attitude on this Bulls team? No!
The trade was just stupid, and I don't even think we should waste our time talking about that because it was a BS steal trade, and I don't know. I guess this is why AK and Eversley do what they do, and you guys are playing with their trade machines. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So I trust AK and Eversley, and I think there's a reason why they're doing what they do, and you guys are playing with your trade machines. Just saying. So it's one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, we'll see what happens. I know that Zach Kleiman, who's the VP of basketball ops and GM over at the Grizzlies, he won Executive of the Year. I think AK got robbed. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, I kind of feel like I trust AK there. I think they're gonna. We'll ask Cassie this in a little bit, but I think. Of course he's good. Of course, Zach, if you're Zach, you're gonna test the market. You'd be crazy if you didn't. So I know that all these rumors. Let's just wait and see what happens. Enough with the hey, I heard this person said, or of course, his agency is gonna leak that rumor about him perhaps maybe going to Portland. I mean, okay. What's in you don't know how Dave's going to be. You don't really have anybody else around him, so you're in a tough Western Conference you're in a tough division anyway, so would you want to go there if you're Zach? I doubt it, but whatever.
No. As we said all season long, Lakeena, in the end of last year, AK and GM Mark Eversley, don't you know that bad boys move in silence? So, and that's what they do right now. They're not tipping their head, and rightfully so. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead. As you're listening to the Friday edition of Second City Sports, I'm Sid. It's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago. Hour number 2 comes up next. We'll be joined by hometown girl Miss Cassie Carlson, the new Fox 32 Sports anchor and reporter, and also Christine Manika will join us as well to wrap up today's show. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach Levine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut-rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Friday edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
We have 60 minutes left in this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for our next guest, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Let's bring in on our next guest. Her sports broadcasting career has taken her through the state of Texas, next to the city of Memphis. Now she's back home covering your teams for Fox 32 Chicago Sports, the Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox, Sky, and everything else in between. Let's welcome her in on her Second City Sports debut. She is the one, the only Miss Cassie Carlson. Cassie,
Yay!
Welcome to our show. How are you?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How are you guys? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Staying cool.
I know, right? We were just complaining like a week ago that we were wanting warm weather. Now we're like, is it too hot? I don't know.
Too soon.
Yeah, you know, growing up here, Cassie, the weather changes every 10 minutes, I believe. We say 15, but it's basically every 5 to 10 minutes. Like you say, it's 46 degrees one day, then it's like 80 degrees the next day.
Pretty much. And everyone always asked when I was moving back here, like, aren't you going to miss the warm weather all the time? And I said, you know, there's a reason why people stick out the Chicago winters, and it's because the summers are so worth it that it makes living through the cold and the ice and the snow for however many months, too many months, worth it in the end. So I'm glad I kind of missed that season and came back at a good time.
All right, we'll get into more of your background in a few minutes, but we left off last hour talking about the Chicago Bulls. Cassie, I know you were there for their playoff run against the Milwaukee Bucks. From an outsider's perspective, looking in, what did you see from the Bulls that they could improve on to be truly championship contenders next season?
Well, I think the thing to remember is that was a pretty new team that was together, and they built that team with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Vooch, and they were a great big three, if you want to call them that. But the reality is a lot of the other guys didn't have the playoff experience, and that is so critical when it comes to the postseason. I came from a place where I covered the Memphis Grizzlies, and it was the same thing last year when they were new to the playoffs, this young nucleus of a team, and they got beat by the Jazz in the first round just because, like, you don't know what to expect. It's faster, teams are better. usually the more experienced teams are better shooters, and they're just more consistent. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the Bulls do this offseason, and of course what Zach LaVine does this offseason. I know he said he's interested in shopping the market, which is making people kind of nervous because no one wants to see one of your core guys leave, especially when the Bulls could potentially offer him a max contract. But I just think that they need more time, and they need more time together. DeMar DeRozan, I think, is an excellent leader of that team. The way he's taken in the young players, you heard that at their end of the season press conferences. Some of the younger guys, just watching him approach every day, started to model their day-to-day and how they practice and how they went to the gym by themselves to get extra shots up. Like, that was all modeled after DeMar DeRozan. So having him on your team is great to help those young guys get more confident, get more comfortable. But at the end of the day, I just think it's lack of experience in the postseason. So you hope that they can run it back again next year and get back to the playoffs.
I find it interesting that people, I'm sure, Cass, you probably have seen all the rumors and such. Oh, yeah. Hey, how about him going to Portland or going to the Lakers, among many others? I mean, nobody knows what Zach is going to do. He's going to test the market, like you said, and we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. What do you think Zach will ultimately do?
I think at the end, I mean, money talks. And so if they come with a huge max contract offered, a lot of those other teams won't be able to offer him that money because of cap space and everything like that. So I think that if he wants it, it's his for the taking. You're in a great basketball town. You're in a great city to live in. And I think that stuff is important when it comes to free agency. I mean, I don't know why he would want to go to Portland necessarily. I just don't think that's as attractive of a team with what you can build with the Bulls and the history here. But, you know, everyone also has their own motives. And so we don't know what Zach LaVine's motives are at this point. He's obviously gonna seek out what's out there, and I don't think anyone can fault him for that, because everyone wants to make the best decision. And everyone, if he were to come back to Chicago, you want to make sure that he wants to be in Chicago, because that also plays into team chemistry and locker room and everything like that. So I don't know. I don't think it's wrong of him to test the market, but I do think you would hope that money talks at the end of the day. Chicago should be able to offer him the most.
Let's stick into the world of basketball, Cassie, and the NBA playoffs. Of course, Lakeena knows that I'm a big John Morant fan. I'm not saying that just worked in Memphis, but he's this era's version of Derrick Rose. Of course, Miami eliminated Philadelphia last night. It looks like Milwaukee may do the same thing to Boston tonight. Of course, Memphis has kept their season alive. They're trying to do it again tonight in Game 6 at Golden State. What do you think about the rest of these NBA playoffs thus far?
Oh, well, I've been really keeping a keen eye on the Grizzlies-Warriors series, because it is like a series filled with drama like I don't think I've ever seen before. It started from Game 1, and then it went from Dillon Brooks to Draymond Green to John Morant and Jordan Poole. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just doesn't happen. Then Steph Curry used Memphis's line, whooped that trick that was their game plan. And then Memphis came out and whooped that trick. And I was like, this is like reality TV show, and it's so fun to watch. So I've been really invested in that series. I mean, the Grizzlies are still very young, and I think that's the thing to remember with that team. Like, they are in year 3 of this rebuild kind of thing. And so when I got there, most of the players were not even 21 years old yet. That's wild. And the way they've turned it around so fast, their GM just won GM of the year. But other series, I think the Bucks just looks so solid to me. And obviously they won last year. Giannis is a force. You look at Drew Holiday, underdog, and the way he played defense the other night down the stretch, and the way they've come back in some games. I just think the Bucks in the postseason, I don't know if they're my favorite to win, but I think if I had to put money down, I would maybe put money down on the Bucks right now. It's going to be interesting with the rest of the series. The Heat, obviously, eliminating the Sixers last night. I don't know. But I've been really watching the Grizzlies more than anything, just because I'm still invested. I see all my friends covering them still, my former coworkers on the road in San Francisco right now. But it's been an entertaining playoffs for sure. Even with the Sixers and like Harden drama and stuff like that, It's been entertaining, which is what we love in sports.
Yeah. Do you hate Draymond Green?
Do I? No, I respect Draymond Green. I think,
Okay. Just asking.
No. I think he's a great elite defensive player. And I love a personality. Like, I think the way that people love him for his personality or they hate him for his personality. But I think he's great and he's a great player. And he causes Memphis fits.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been doing that too so far. Let's go to the Diamond for a second, Cassie. We'll start with the White Sox. They got into a little bit of a group, but then they lost last night to the Yankees by a touchdown. But what do you think? Can the White Sox right the ship? I think that is there still time for them to do it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, baseball is a long season. I do think that they're just lacking consistency at this point because you look at the stretches. It was like a 9-game stretch of really bad play to winning what was the streak in a row last week to then last night where you're like, oh my gosh, these late innings where they just have these huge run innings that they're giving up. And so I think their starting pitching has become really solid. And you look at some of their bullpen and they're just struggling. Joe Kelly is just coming back. So that could be a factor in it too, that it just takes time to get into his rhythm. You can't forget either that the Yankees currently have the best record in baseball. But I do think it's important to realize that the way that you're going to kind of view their season is they need to compete and they need to win some of these games against these really good teams, because the White Sox were talked about as a team that could be a World Series contender. And then you see kind of the lapses in their defensive play, which has been a problem. And maybe that's the most disappointing part of it all. They can string together hits at the plate, but then they're making all these errant throws and you're wondering whoever thought that this team would make it to the World Series, because I think just good teams are consistent and they're not quite there yet. But I do think they have the pieces and the pitching, especially to have a good season and obviously make the postseason.
Of course, the White Sox had the day off on Wednesday. Cassie, I know you were there at Sox Park. Of course, you can't tell I'm a Sox fan. I'm not calling it that corporate name, even though I'm a season ticket holder, but that's a whole nother issue aside. But take us through that whole day on Wednesday, right up until at least a half hour before first pitch. Word came down that there was multiple negative COVID tests throughout the Cleveland Guardians roster, and the game wasn't played. Of course, it's been moved to a day-night doubleheader on July 23rd. Take us through that whole day from your perspective.
Yeah, so I got to the ballpark, around like 11:30 for a 1:10 first pitch. And I was getting set up in the press box and just sitting there kind of like writing down some storylines, things to watch out for. The grounds crew was out there. There were guys warming up in the outfield. Fans were already inside. And over the PA system in the press box, they're like, the White Sox Guardians game has been postponed. And there was kind of like a pause. And in my head, I didn't even consider COVID, and I don't know why, but I was like, is it too hot? Like, are we like in the first hot day? And they're like, oh. And then they were like, because of positive COVID tests in the Guardians clubhouse. And I was like, what? We have not, it feels like forever that we have, it just felt like a long time to hear those words again. I've covered a number of cancellations over the past 2 years. And it's like, you almost become a little bit numb to it, because when I was in Memphis football played in Hawaii for the Hawaii Bowl, and that game got canceled less than 24 hours before it was scheduled to kick off. And I was there like, oh my gosh, I just traveled all this way and there's no game. So it's like, I've just covered so many at this point. But it also got you thinking, like, that was the first Major League Baseball game that was moved this season because of COVID, and they're not testing unless you're symptomatic. So obviously we later learned that manager Terry Francona was symptomatic. And then there was a long list of coaches and people in the traveling party who had then been contact traced or also tested positive. I mean, at the end of the day, I think at this point, you just hope everyone's healthy and safe. I think the White Sox probably needed a break. They've had a lot of games. And so
yes.
I don't know if like maybe that was a blessing in disguise, but on those days it's weird because we don't have a show until 5 o'clock. And so I was just hanging out in the press box. I mean, there's only so much you can say. They also had canceled pregame that day. And so maybe that was kind of like a precursor that no one had read into really because it had been so long. But those days are kind of strange, and you just hope that it doesn't become a frequent thing again. But at the end of the day, if everyone else is safe, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Going to the north side for a second, we were talking about it earlier in the show about the Cubs, the kind of ambivalency among the fans, and with everything going on. Wilson Contreras is his birthday. Happy birthday, Wilson. Of course they would win 2 out of 3 against the Padres. Of course they would in San Diego.
Right.
But yeah, what are your sort of your thoughts on the Cubs?
I just don't think they really have an identity at all. And I know that it's a rebuild, but like, I don't even know who or what they're rebuilding around at this point. Wilson Contreras, I don't believe is under a contract. They could sign him to a long-term deal. And he's been consistent and solid for the Cubs for so many years now. But they're also another team that's lacking consistency. They're young. They're bringing guys up and sending guys down. And you knew this was going to happen when they traded away all of those guys from the World Series team last year with Rizzo leaving and Ryan, Baez. It takes a couple of years, I think, for things to feel like for you to feel good about it. And I know people did not feel good about that at the time. It was business, but I just don't think they have an identity right now. And someone who, again, is consistent at the plate. Their pitching is not good. And for how they started, you look at Seiya Suzuki, and obviously he's a rookie, started so hot, but I think reality sets in, and a long season. And, he's struggling at times. And he said it's like a conditioning thing, but the good pitchers figure you out, and that could be it too. So it's just a team that needs direction, and we'll see what they do. But right now, I don't think there is a clear direction for the Cubs.
And speaking of direction, Cassie, with the Cubs, and speaking of Wilson Contreras, he's been swinging a hot stick lately. And of course, Kyle Hendricks looked great in his last start this past Monday at the Padres. Do you think they can keep this up? Do you think that GM Jed Hoyer could at least trade one or both of those guys at the trade deadline in July?
Well, he could. You better get something good in return, because then I don't know who's going to be swinging hot for you at the plate. And they've had some injuries now too that have caused some guys to go down and bring some guys up. But Kyle Hendricks is interesting because I don't think he's the same Kyle Hendricks that he was a few years ago. And pitchers have a timeline. And I mean, I don't know if his timeline is up, but it seems like it's faded, and he just can't find the consistency that he once had that made him such a great ace. And so Kyle Hendricks is interesting. Wilson Contreras, he's just swinging the bat so well. I just don't know that they have a solid leader in the clubhouse. And I'm not sure, I haven't been in there enough to see like kind of personality wise, like who kind of takes on that role, because it's just hard to tell since I'm so new that like who's the biggest personality in there to figure that one out. But to lose either of those guys, that you are losing leadership there for sure.
Let's switch gears and go to Granite Talk Bears. I got my little green chair here with the Bears. The schedule was just released yesterday. The Bears will appear 3 times in nationally. My apologies, America.
Why? They only deserve one. That's it.
I know, right? Oh, 3. Yeah, we'll see. I know, right? But yeah, totally new regime. What are your expectations for the Bears this year, Cassie?
Oh, my expectations is that they're still going to be figuring this out because they still need bodies to make a full roster. They're going to be young again, and they're going to have a lot of guys in different positions, I think, trying to figure out what works best for this team. I would hope that Justin Fields looks better just because the offense is more catered to him. And so we'll see more of his natural raw talent shine through than the poor position he was put in last year. That really just was unfortunate for him. And it was unfortunate for the Bears because, I mean, you had all this excitement drafting what you thought would be potentially a franchise quarterback, and then you don't trust him, or you don't think he should start because it was just so weird how they handled things last year. And so I don't know if expectations should be high. I kind of went through their schedule and I said, I think they should win a minimum of 7 games. But you know how things work. I don't know if they will. I mean, they could win 8. I heard someone say they could win 10. 10 to me seems like a big number for them. But I think expectations are going to be, one, Justin Fields hopefully gets better protection than last year. He cannot be sacked 39 times and he only played in 12 games. And then I think you hope to see someone on the offense emerge, like a skills player, because that is where people are like, who is going to be the go-to guy? Darnell Mooney is good, but he's small and he's not a Devontae Adams and he's not any other Cooper Kupp. Like, I mean, you can name all these big name receivers and he hasn't proven totally to be that as a number 1 wide receiver. So I think now is his time to step into that role, prove himself alongside Justin Fields, who hopefully has an offensive scheme that is better fit for him and a better fit for all involved. And then it's also going to be interesting to see how the rookies look, because drafting the 2 defensive backs in the second round, I just think they took best available, and those were the best available on their draft board. And I know people were freaking out like, no O-linemen and no receivers in the second round in your top 2 picks. It's not like exciting picks, but they need help everywhere. And like I said before, they just need bodies. And so if like those 2 guys, Gordon and Brisker, can turn into starters, that's a win, I think. And all things that we've heard is Gordon is a really solid player that should hopefully be an impact player for the Bears this season. But expectations, I think they're all over the place. I think if you could win 7 games, that's great. But anything beyond, like, I don't know, 5 is probably great.
Whoever said the Bears could win 10 games, they're drunk playing Madden too much. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, we're halfway home with our guest, News Fox 32 sports anchor reporter, Miss Cassie Carlson, right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. One more question about the Bears, Cassie, before we move on to more important things. You were up at Hallis Hall during the draft. And what was your first impressions of GM Ryan Poles, the new head coach, Matt Eberflus? It looks like they have a plan in place. They're trying to rebuild this thing as quickly as they can, but they still have a long way to go from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, from an outsider's perspective, they do have a long way to go. First impression of Ryan Poles is I think he's like a very like, you can tell he's a smart guy and he doesn't like to I don't want to say overthink things, because I'm positive he's probably an overanalyzer like most people, but I think he has his ideas and he's very just forthcoming with like what he wants, and he's going to go after what he wants, but is also realistic about what he can get. And so I think like he comes across as young, able to connect with the guys. I think that's one thing that everyone had kind of echoed when we talked to them, is that this staff and regime did a good job of getting to know players as people before they did as like a player and what they're worth based off of what they can do on the field. And I kind of got the sense that I obviously wasn't here for the previous regime, but that didn't happen. That's kind of the sense I got, is that, there wasn't that connection. And so I think people appreciate that they're trying to get to know the people first, because at the end of the day, and this is kind of like a whole thing about sports, is that, yeah, they're athletes, but it's just their job. Like, they all have lives. I don't know if you read the Tariq Cohen article the other day. Like, everyone has a life outside of football, which is their job. And so I think it's important that they like take care of them as people too. And I think that's probably lost in a lot of pro sports. Eberflus, he loves his acronyms. And we'll see. I think there's a lot of questions out with him, rightfully so, just because he hasn't been a head coach before. And he's obviously turned around defenses in Indy, but doing it as a head coach, especially once you get into the season and you're not winning games, perception changes a lot. And so I think there's still a lot for him to prove, as with Poles, but they both seem like good guys at least. But I think that's about all we can tell at this moment.
Should be interesting there. I want to go back to your Memphis days for a second, Cassie. Imani Bates, who is one of my favorite players on that Memphis team for the last couple of years, he's into the transfer portal. And some of the schools, I know he's an Ann Arbor kid, so but Michigan's out apparently. It's Michigan State, I think Eastern Michigan, I think a couple of West Coast schools, and also DePaul I saw. It might be another finalist. Where do you see him going? And I think it could be something to do with some of the stuff that's going on in Memphis right now. I don't want to, comment on that, but what are your thoughts on this?
Amani is an interesting case. So he came in early, and he was obviously all the hype since he was a little kid. They call him the next KD because his game is similar to Kevin Durant. And as a 17-year-old that came to Memphis, which is a basketball city, hands down. And people talk about the Grizzlies right now, but it is a Memphis Tigers basketball city. And there is a very large microscope on that team. And he came in, he's very undersized, and he came in late. So he came in literally, I think, a day or two before the deadline to commit. And there was a ton of problems. And so, and I don't want to, that wasn't because of Amani necessarily, but when a mega star comes into a team alongside another mega star and they reclass up, they're young, but they're also making a ton of money because of NIL, and everyone is talking about them. It changes the dynamic of a team. And so Penny Hardaway did a great job of protecting Amani Bates, because Penny is a huge fan of Amani Bates. But then there was some other things that kind of happened, and he wasn't playing well. He had these injuries. There was just some things that didn't go as planned. And I don't know if Amani Bates's camp, I would say, handled them like they should. And so you feel bad for the kid, though, because he is young. He was expected to be this mega star, come in and make an instant impact. And I think people forget that he was still so young, and he didn't have the off-season training with Penny Hardaway in Memphis before that season started. And there was a lot of drama with that team this year outside of him. And so I think it's good that things ended when he came in the in March Madness, and he hit a big three in his first game. And I forget how many days or whatever. His first shot was a three, and he hit it. That's great for Amani Bates, because he is a talented kid. He's a very nice kid. I just think he's grown up with so much pressure on him that he is expected to be the next big thing. And I think that's a hard life to live. I don't think he ever had a chance to grow up. And so I just think he needs to be in a place that allows him to do that. And I also think that comes with time and age. But for his sake, I just hope I think anywhere he goes, he can make an impact. He is a good player. He needs to add some weight probably, because he would get beat up in the paint. But I just hope he's in a place that he's happy, because really it doesn't matter for him where he's going to play. All eyes are going to be on him regardless. But I don't really know exactly where he's going to go. But I think, maybe not playing in a Power 5 conference is good for him, because, his skills will shine at any school, and he doesn't need that.
Last moment or two with new Fox 32 Chicago sports reporter, Miss Cassie Carlson. She's hanging out with us on the Friday edition of Second City Sports, live in the living color of Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Cassie, we know that you're a Palatine native, but when we bring on a guest who has ties to Chicago, we like to ask them the vital signs. We know that you're a former athlete, you're from Palatine, but what's the vital signs? Cubs fan, Sox fan? What's your favorite restaurant to go to? What was your favorite music radio station back in the day? Give us the juicy stuff.
Oh, the juicy stuff. Okay. So, grew up a Cubs fan.
I still love you.
I always say now, I'm a sports fan, so I just like good stories. I like good games. And so, I'm a fan of players at this point, probably more than anything, because you root for people who are nice to you and who are good people. And so I just say I'm a general sports fan at this point, but I did grow up a Cubs fan. What else? Well, if you're asking pizza, it would be Lou's. I grew up on Lou's. I feel like everyone has their deep dish that they grew up on. We had a Lou's around the corner from my house. And so that was the treat. And that was always my, when I would come home from Memphis or Texas, I was always we need to have Lou's when I'm home. Radio stations, I don't know, everything. I think if you look at my car with the dial, it would have been of course you would have had B96, 101.1, 101.9. I can't remember any of the other ones, but those are probably the three there was 103.5, 102.3. And it's funny because I don't remember any radio stations from any other place I've lived, but I still remember the Chicago radio station.
Oh gosh, the last question for me. I know you're in Illinois. You went to Illinois. How cool was it also to Josh Whitman just signed a new deal than the AD there. So what are your expectations for some of the sports there? The football, men's hoops.
I hope that football can kind of make a resurgence. That would be nice, but we've never really been a football school ever since I've been an Illinois fan. I always say we're a golf school, and then also a basketball school. Basketball, I just hope that they can find a way to win in the postseason. Like, it's great to win the Big Ten and all that, but let's win in March when it counts. I came in, I was at school still when Whitman was hired, and then at the time it was Lovie Smith was hired, and then it was Brad Underwood. So it's cool to see kind of how things have changed over time, but also have remained the same. And just watching some of the players that, with the new COVID rules, there were players that were like there up until last season that were there when I was like towards the end of my college career. So it was like, I'm like, wait, I'm like, are they that old and like still playing college basketball? So that part was weird. But I mean, I love the University of Illinois, and gosh, I always tell people stay in college as long as you can, because after you just work. And so I haven't gone back enough. I was back this summer for a wedding, and I walked around campus, and it looks totally different from when I was there. All my favorite establishments were gone. And I was like, I don't want it to lose its charm, but that place holds a special place in my heart.
Last question from me quickly, Cassie. We always have a group of people, young people that want to do what we do what you do at the highest level. What would be one piece of advice would you give them to be successful in this industry?
Yeah, it's kind of cliche. My first piece of advice would be say yes to everything and figure the rest out later, because things will scare you, things will intimidate you, and you might not feel like you're ready, but you're never going to be ready till you do it. And, if you're going to go far in this business, you're going to find a way to do it, and you're going to find a way to do it well. And then my second piece of advice, and I have told myself this since I started, is like, treat every story, especially when I was in a small market, treat every story like you're on ESPN. And like, it's the most important thing that is happening that day, because to someone it is. And if you treat it that way, people are they're going to know that you care. And, if you show that you care and you're interested, a lot of times I think your work comes across way better. And also, like, just, it makes you feel good about yourself. And, you might be I was in Lubbock, Texas, market 140, I don't know. And I covered a lot of high school football, and, but to people in Lubbock, Texas, high school football is like the Bears in Chicago. And so I approached it that way, and I think it paid off. But yeah, say yes to everything. And treat every day like you're the biggest story, you're the biggest thing, and you're all that matter. Your story is the one that matters most. And I think that's helped me, and I would hope it helps someone else.
Great advice. You can catch her on Fox 32, the Fox affiliate, also too on the streaming app to Fox Chicago. Where can people find you on social media? Easy for you to say. Where people can find you on social media, Cassie?
It's Friday. Words don't matter after today, right? So if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it is Cassie Carlson TV for both of them.
All right. Thank you very much, Cassie, for coming on to our show today. Great job. Let's do this again soon. I would say welcome to Chicago, but you're familiar, so welcome back home.
Welcome home.
It was so good to be back home. It was nice meeting you both. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you, Cassie. Let's do this again soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. That's Cassie Carlson from Fox Chicago. Of course, you can check her out. Whatever, 5, 10, I don't know.
Yeah, in the Sports Zone on Sundays at 10 o'clock. Yeah.
10 o'clock. So we got all that covered. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and our girl Christine is on deck with us. We're gonna talk about the NFL schedule release. For all most of the games, all 250 some odd games and such. We'll also get our thoughts on the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs and so much more. A lot to do still. This is Second City Sports with Sid, Lakeena, Sports on Chicago. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight, 126-109, the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of Second City Sports, the Friday the 13th edition. Woo! We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. We have less than a half hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk radio show. To help us close out today's show for the day and for the week, she's going to do her best. Liam Hendricks. She's trying not to screw up her back or anything else. Here comes here comes our homegirl from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Here's the one, the only Christine "The Cream" Manika.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to be like Liam Hendricks now. What's going on with that?
Well, last year's Liam Hendricks, you shut everything down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. How about yourself?
We had some crazy weather here last night. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw tornadoes and stuff like that. How is everything okay with you?
The tornadoes were north of me in Castlewood, South Dakota. That town is pretty much flattened for the most part. But we had something called what they're saying what we had is a haboob, and that basically is when dirt and the wind collide, it creates this big dust storm. So not only do we have those severe thunderstorms, but we had just dust rolling in here. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, it looked like midnight for a little bit. So it was a scary situation for sure. I almost did go in the basement of my place, but I didn't hear any sirens or anything. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna close the blinds a little bit because this is kind of scary to look at.
Oh gosh. Oh boy. I'm glad you guys are okay. And I'm sure that had to have been scary, those scary few minutes. My goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy for sure. My boyfriend was like, well, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, I know, but it's like, oh gosh, this is weird. And he was loving it.
Well, you get those storm chasers, etc. So there are a group of folks who love it. What do you think about the White Sox? We'll start with that. I know we got a lot to talk with you about. I mean, they were up and down. I think they won like 7 in a row, but then they lost, big to the Yankees. last night. Joe Kelly, unfortunately, this is what you're going to get, folks, with Joe Kelly. So I'm warning White Sox fans right now. Sorry, Sid, but yeah, how do you feel about the White Sox? So at this point in the season,
there's been a lot of, what did we say at the beginning of the White Sox season? That someone was going to get like 15 strikeouts. What was the bet? And I said it was going to be Dylan Cease. Sid, you're about to owe me some money because I called and you thought I was crazy just by your face. You're like, there's no way Dylan Cease is going to do anything. So
now he's trying to put some innuendo in my mouth. You
just
trying to make me sound like Dylan Cease is a bum. Oh no, you ain't gonna be that slick. Oh no.
I'm just saying, I expect a little payout here pretty soon, Sid. I just want to let you know about that. But as far as the team goes, I wouldn't worry about anything. It's only the beginning of the season right now. Yes, there's been plenty of bumps in the road within the last couple of weeks. Who blows a 6-0 lead? The White Sox, clearly. It's nothing new, unfortunately. They did that last year when I went to go see a game, and it was Michael Kopech who came out as a reliever. And I think I told you guys this, that I was highly disappointed because he blew like a 8-0 lead, something like that. Just blew it out of the water. So, again, it's not abnormal, and it's not like uncharacteristic for the Sox to do anything like that. But I think people have to keep in mind, too, there's still a lot of baseball to go. There's still 100 and something games left in the season. And furthermore, now we're hearing COVID things are coming back. The Guardians, what the heck? Like, I think they were one of the teams last year that kind of had issues with COVID, too. So when I heard that, I said, well, there's something you didn't hear since last year and whatnot. So that's going to be another element. And it just goes to show that COVID still plays a factor in 2022. So, yeah, if White Sox fans are worrying, I would pump the brakes on that just a little bit for right now. If we only had 10 games now, then I'd be like, okay, now I'm worried,
Yeah, it's interesting going back to the COVID situation. I know that Major League Baseball wasn't required. It wasn't mandated that the players would get vaccinated for this upcoming season. I know many of them are, but for the minor leagues who are not unionized, they had that choice to get vaccinated or not. But we all know what that underlying message is. But we won't get into that. But I want to stick with the White Sox, Christine, about the offense. It looks like Eloy Jimenez is coming back in a couple of weeks. Lance Lynn should be back by the end of this month. You got Johan Moncada back. The weather's starting to warm up. Do you expect this offense to, as you young kids would say, turn up?
I would hope when it's out 40 degrees in Chicago, something will light their fire. There's got to be a little heat underneath them. Yeah, with Johan, it was really disappointing not to have him there for the first couple of weeks of the season because everyone's like, yeah, he's going to be great. And it's like, hold up, he's injured. It's like, wait, what do you mean he's injured? Like, the season hasn't even really started yet. So I think that's going to add another element into the lineup for sure. Overall, I think the offense, when they're in a zone, they're in that zone. Tim Anderson, he still has that fiery personality. He still has that fiery energy. We saw that a few weeks ago with Cleveland fans in the stand, and that got him into some trouble a little bit. But
the number one salute.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like there are guys there that when they are down, if they're ever down like that again, they have guys to bring them up and somehow bring up their energy because that's a good part of the game too. Baseball is all mental. If you think about it, you can't let bad plays or one bad throw get to you so quickly. So I think it's learning how to recover from that and how you're going to respond to it in the future going forward.
Yeah, that should be very interesting. I think the White Sox are going to get it together. I feel like I think this seems too good not to, but we'll see what happens. The NBA playoffs. What's impressed you so far for what you've seen?
The pitching. I mean, it's what I was saying before the start of the season that even during preseason, their pitching, their bullpen is really strong. The problem right now is the complete opposite of what the problem was last year with the bullpen. It's the hitting. So now we got to find a way to balance out a good bullpen and at least somewhat of a good hitting bench. So they got the elements down. They just got to find a way to create a balancing act right now.
All right, basketball, Christine. Of course, we know what the Bulls' future it may or may not look.
We don't talk about the Bulls.
Okay. Well, Christine's coming out on fire today. We love it. We love it. But I want to get your thoughts about the rest of the NBA playoffs. It looks like Milwaukee is going to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami actually did that last night. Of course, Memphis and the Golden State Warriors whooped that trick from Game 5 the other night. So the Warriors are up in that series. What are your thoughts about the NBA playoffs?
I think the biggest question out of the Miami and Sixers game last night is what's going to happen with James Harden. He was a part of that big blockbuster trade, and that's kind of up in the air saying, all right, well, they wanted him to get into the playoffs, and they did that, but then they lost against Jimmy Butler and the Heat. So where does James Harden go from here? Does he stay with the Sixers? Does he go back to the Nets? As long as Kyrie's on the team, I don't think he wants to go back to the Nets. Like Jay, we don't talk about Kyrie and James Harden. Like let's go there. Let's just not
treat them like ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Like ex-boyfriends for the most part. But I think that's going to be an interesting element for them. The Bucks. They're the reigning champs. I don't expect anything less for them to keep going, especially with Giannis still at the realms for their team. And it looks like, not even a train can take this man down. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be very interesting going forward, especially if the Heat end up making it all the way. It could be a Bucks Heat match. I think that would be kind of fun, actually. Really right now, the biggest question is what's going to happen to James Harden?
It'll be it. Yeah, and what about the West? You think the Warriors can wrap it up tonight?
I wouldn't put it past Steph. I wouldn't. So I would have confidence in the Warriors tonight.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Friday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sid, Lakeena, and Christine from KXRB, our homegirls, is with you on this Friday the 13th. You believe in that foolishness? Let's jump over to the Chicago Bears. Christine, their schedule was released yesterday. Of course, leaks have been out for the last few days. On September 11th, the Bears will open up their season with a home game against the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy G or Trey Lance may be the starting quarterback. It may not matter. Maybe it will, but we'll see when we get across that bridge. But the Bears will have, I believe, 9 home games this year. Of course, their bye week is in week 14. And they have at least 3 to 4 home games in the month of December. When's the last time that's happened? So, exactly.
It's been a while if it has.
So the Bears schedule is kind of crazy this year. It looks like it's a third place schedule at best. But we're not going to go through which game they're going to win, which game they're going to lose. We don't have that type of time. But looking at it from your perspective, Christine, what's the win total as of right now for you?
Well, if you're counting on them winning in week 2 with the Packers, good luck with that one. Because I haven't talked to you guys since all this went down, but I feel bad for Nick Foles. I feel bad that they kind of, again, they did the respectable thing in the end in regards to that situation, but now they get some washed up, has been backup for Justin Fields, presumably. And it's like, wait a minute. Why would you all of a sudden go backwards with the quarterback position when you had a solid guy and a solid mentor like Nick Foles? Because that's what Justin Fields needs right now. He doesn't need someone that was good once upon a time, like, unfortunately Andy Dalton was. But you need a guy like Nick Foles in case something really happens with Fields. With this guy now being the backup, I can't say that I'm totally confident with the quarterback's situation at the moment. Again, Fields was a rookie last year. He got thrown into a very abnormal situation. But you got to remember, he's still a young kid. He still doesn't really have the true experience underneath his belt. Is he putting in the work? Absolutely. I see on videos all the time of him putting in the work and stuff like that. But when you come up against veteran quarterbacks, if it will be Jimmy G with the 49ers, that's someone that you got to worry about because he's been in the game long enough to know. Then you have Aaron Rodgers. I don't think I need to say anything after Aaron Rodgers. You also have the Vikings. They're going to be seen as a threat this year, especially with their coach now and with their new GM and Cousins at least being with them for another year, that's a team that everyone should worry about this year, in my opinion. It may not seem like it right now, but that coach is going to take that team places, and it's really going to turn that organization around.
And they also the Bears have three primetime games this year. Don't ask
why.
I don't know why.
Well, it's better than having 5 or 6 last season. The networks learned not to put the Bears on primetime.
Well, yeah, they probably
Not till they earn their stripes.
I guess so. 9. I guess they got 9 home games. Like Sid said, it's gonna be interesting though, because I feel like like Cassie said, I think they'll probably win like maybe 5 to 8 games.
That's
probably the more
right.
that's probably reasonable expectations for the Bears. I feel like, because like she said, I know we all agree they need bodies at this point. They're getting more bodies right now, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. But 3. Yeah, they got back to back. I think they got a Sunday night and a Thursday nighter. But So I apologize to America.
Is it safe to say that this is a rebuild year for them?
Yes.
Oh, they won't. Yeah, it is. They won't say it, but yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if that word was being thrown out there enough yet. So.
Right. So going through some of the schedule again. We'll do the primetime schedule. We can't go through all 252 games because that's a lot. But but going through the Monday night schedule, and if you guys didn't see the ESPN schedule release on ESPN2, you saw Troy Aikman throwing shade at Tom Brady. We'll get to him in a second.
Tommy.
Yeah, right. Look at some of these matchups. Look, you upgrade your tandem, you get better matchups. So a lot of these matchups look really good. Which ones are you guys looking forward to seeing? Christine, I'll start with you.
Oh gosh, it's whoever. Is it Kansas City with the Rams, the first Sunday night game of the season? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to that matchup for sure. There's which one? Oh, here we go. I just talked about this with my boyfriend. Denver with Seattle and Russell Wilson now being on the Denver side.
That's a Sunday night opener. Yeah.
Exactly. Was that planned or was that planned? Because what a way to start off Russell Wilson's welcome to Denver, So that I'm interested to see. I'm also interested to see just in general with the Patriots. They were pretty good last year, especially with Mac at the helm, and the coach, he's leading the way with that too.
Belichick.
So I couldn't think of it for whatever reason. Belichick, Belichick, and whatever.
whatever.
I almost said Belichick actually, but Mac Jones, I think he's going to be really good this year. You saw just a little bit about what he can do in his rookie season. I'd say a lot of teams out there better watch out for him.
And speaking of the Patriots, they play the Bears in October on Monday Night Football. So it depends on where the Bears are. That could be an ugly game for Chicago.
But I don't expect this to be a pretty one. Good luck.
Right.
Yeah, Troy might be swearing that game. Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much, but
Yeah. And speaking of your boy Russell Wilson, Christine, I couldn't wait to ask you this. The NFL has 3 games on Christmas Day, so they're going to compete with the NBA all day for our eyeballs. Denver will travel to Los Angeles to take on the world champion Rams on Christmas Day.
Yeah, what a way to celebrate Christmas, right? You're not in the cold, you're not in the snow, you're in sunny California, the nice warm palm trees on Christmas Day. Hey, even if they lose, that's a pretty good way to spend Christmas in like 70-degree weather and sunshine. So
not bad, right?
I wouldn't be complaining too much if you lose. But definitely that's going to be a big game to watch, especially now with Russell leading the Broncos, and you still have Matt Stafford on the other side with a good portion of his team still intact. Odell Beckham, he's still kind of up in the air of, is he staying with the Rams? Is he even going to be healthy? Like that's still kind of all like being juggled at the moment, but still it's going to be a great matchup between veterans and some new faces too.
Yeah, the Thursday night matchup, on Amazon, that's going to be interesting too. Right off the bat in week 2, you got the Chargers and the Chiefs. We'll have to find some way to stream that game.
Yeah,
because that's on Prime. But they got a couple of good ones here. Of course, the Colts and the Broncos. The Broncos have, I think they got like about 5 or 6 primetime games this year.
Good for them. They should. They were in it for a little bit at least last year. More so than the Bears. That's why I'm saying that.
Right. October 6th. That's true. October 6th. That matchup on Prime. Some of the late season ones are really good. The Niners and the Cardinals. That's in November. That's going to be in Mexico City. That's also Troy Aikman's birthday, so I'm sure.
CCC.
Yeah, so right, so yeah, that should be a fun
Aikman
one.
might be doing the sauce on that night in the booth.
We'll have a couple margaritas, do a little
right,
lap dance,
right,
yeah.
Right. So yeah, so they got a good matchup there.
CCC.
Right. October 30th on Sunday night, you got the Packers and the Bills. That should be a fun one. On NBC with the new tandem course of Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth and Miss Alyssa Stark on the call there. So yeah, so many really good matchups this year, and I think it's gonna be interesting though that how are some of these new tandems are gonna work out. We'll see what Joe Buck and Troy would do on Monday night on ESPN/ABC because some of the games will be on ABC this year simulcast. We got the Prime Video, of course, with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. So many nuances here, and I feel like there's going to be storylines not just on the field, but also too with the booths as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a lot of talk for sure.
Yeah, speaking of the television booth, Lakeena was going to bring this up. I'll bring it up. Tom Brady, whenever his career is over, me personally, I think it's after this coming season, but but he's going to work for the NFL on Fox. It's a 10-year, $375 million deal. Of course, that deal is worth more than what he's earned throughout his NFL career. Christine, I'll start with you. I know Fox has the Super Bowl this year. I was thinking about this for the last couple of days. Should Tampa Bay get eliminated early from the playoffs this year, I think Fox is going to somehow bring in Tom Brady to introduce him to us for the football audience. I know they still trying to form a number one crew after Buckman, Aikman, bolted for ESPN. So what do you think about Brady? Because I know he didn't show much of a personality in New England. He's starting to do that a little bit in Tampa. I know he's on social media, but we know that Peyton Manning, the reason why him and his brother Eli, their Manning cast has succeeded because they show a lot of their personality, and plus they bring on celebrities. But we haven't seen that much from Tom Brady outside the football field.
You know, I'm gonna have to counter argue with that one, Sid. I think Tom Brady would be a great analyst and a great asset to Fox just because I watch a lot of his press conferences. He has a way to kind of connect with who he's talking to, you know, whether it be one person or a room full of people. He has a way to connect with people, and he does it in a way that is respectful and charming, but yet if you make him really mad, you don't want to make Brady mad. So you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting dynamic. And with a lot of these guys that go from the field to the booth, you either have the personality or you don't have the personality. Like, Tony Romo, he's great in the booth. He was a great quarterback and he's great in the booth. He has that energy. Tom Brady, even more so now being in Tampa, he definitely has that energy. I think he has that charisma. I think he has the charm that everybody wants when it comes to looking for someone on TV. And he's not bad to look at. You know, that's another aspect of it too. But I think he would be a great asset. He's been in the game long enough. He has enough knowledge. He knows everybody player wise, coaching staff wise on all ends of the field. So I think it would be great. I know Erin Andrews, she tweeted a video of her excitement, or she tweeted a TikTok, something like that of her saying, oh my God, yes, Brady's joining Fox. So I think she's excited about that, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think he'll show a little bit of something there too. And I think he's gonna be doing more than $375 million. I think he's gonna do more than just football games. He's probably gonna end up being like the face of the Fox Sports and FS1. I'm sure they're probably gonna put him on their debate shows during the season. I'm sure he's gonna be developing shows for them. That show that he has on ESPN Plus, they're probably going to pull that and put that on the Fox network. So I think he'll be doing more than this. I know people look at the salary and say, "Oh my God, he's got $375 million for calling games." No, I'm sure he's going to be doing a lot more than that. So I think
it's a 10-year contract too. That's another thing that people got to keep in mind too. It's 10 years. It's not like 2 or 3 like normal people will get in TV. This is 10 years.
It's gonna be spread out, so yeah, he's gonna be doing a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, you can imagine Tom Brady and Skip Bayless on Undisputed.
Oh gosh,
boy, I know. I don't think Skip wanted that. I don't think he wants any of that smoke.
No.
Shannon Sharp, Skip, I don't know.
I'll say Shannon will probably welcome it. Skip, not so much.
Right.
Not so much, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Some more media news. Vince Carter and Peyton Manning, speaking of, will be teaming up for a basketball version of Peyton's Place.
Go,
so
let's go.
Yeah, so that's gonna be pretty cool. So yeah, very interesting sort of take. It's gonna be similar. To. It's gonna be Vince is gonna be talking to some various players and such. Also, 2 other athletes will be involved as well. It's gonna be all types of spinoffs too. Cause I guess you got one with his brother Eli. Peyton does with Ronda Rousey, David Ortiz, and Abby Wambach. The legendary soccer player for the United States. So yeah, so definitely Vince Places. It doesn't have any episodes yet, but there is going to be a section on ESPN Plus, and it'll be uploaded, every Tuesday at noon. The first episode will be about the origins of basketball, among other things, with Patrick Ewing, Ray Allen, and Dirk, and some others. So it's a pretty cool concept too. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, Vince Carter, as I said before, Lakeena, around this time last year during the Olympics, the Olympic basketball, he's a very smart man. He's very intelligent. He's a very good analyst. I know he does some stuff for the Atlanta Hawks as well. So Vince Carter, very underrated as an NBA analyst. He's doing a fine job. So he's going to do a fine job here as well. All right, let's. We have a couple minutes left here on Second City Sports, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena, and Christine are here with you. Lakeena, let's review the Stanley Cup playoffs quickly. Of course, the Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Game 6 is tonight. Pittsburgh released that series 3-2. Sidney Crosby is out due to concussion. Did you guys check the video? I retweeted it on my Twitter. Ryan Reeves, Ryan Reeves of the New York Rangers before Game 5, he yelled out the starting lineup, trying to get his guys hyped up and ready to go. I would like to wake up to that every morning.
That's it. Well, that's it.
And goalie Chris Kreider.
Oh goodness, that didn't really work out for them, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be these matchups though so far has been really, interesting. Toronto, they lose, so Tampa's forced to Game 7, so now that's tied at 3.
Let's go Maple Leafs. I told you, Maple Leafs in 7. Let's go.
All right, St. Louis and then the Wild season. That's very disappointing for them.
Ooh.
Yeah, because that didn't go very well for them.
Yeah.
Edmonton forced a Game 7. They win 4-2 last night against the Kings. Also to the Bruins, forced a Game 7 against Carolina. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Rangers respond, especially with Crosby not there tonight. So I'm thinking they're going to force a Game 7. I really feel that's going to be sort of the key there. Florida and Washington. Washington will try to force a Game 7. We'll see if Ovi can, has another trick up his sleeve. That should be an interesting game as well. And also we'll see if Calgary can end their series against Dallas tonight.
Yeah, so for my picks tonight, I have the Rangers, I have the Capitals forcing a Game 7, and I have the Flames tonight. I know I have Florida winning that series, but I think the Capitals will force a Game 7. So my winners for tonight: Pittsburgh, Washington, and Calgary. Take it to the bank.
Yeah, I have Rangers. I have Rangers at 7 anyway. You know this, Sid. I think they'll force a Game 7, especially with Crosby being out. I think Washington will sneak Game 7 too. I think Ovi will have another game up his sleeve, and I think Calgary, that's a team I've been high on all year. I think they end the series tonight against Dallas.
Yep, and then three Game 7s tomorrow: Boston and Carolina, Tampa and Toronto, and then the young LA Kings against the Edmonton Oilers. I'll give you my picks for tomorrow. I have Carolina, of course. I have Toronto, and give me Edmonton.
Oh, these are some tough ones. I'll pick Carolina just because I picked Carolina to win the series anyway. I think Tampa just because they're the back-to-back champions unless Toronto beats them, and I'll say Edmonton too.
Christine.
I'll be honest. I have not kept up on hockey, the Stanley Cup playoffs at all. Just because the Blackhawks aren't in it, it's like, okay, next season, move on. And then Minnesota got out. Just because it's so out there, sure, let's give it to Florida.
Right. Okay.
Let's give it to Florida.
Florida.
Because they're definitely known for their hockey.
Right. Oh well, yeah. I mean, Tampa back to back. What are you guys looking forward to this weekend? It's sports or otherwise.
Baseball. Looking forward to watching more baseball.
Yeah, you'll surely be out there at Sox Park tomorrow for Tim Anderson bobblehead day.
Of course
I don't know if I can find it.
Oh,
What's up, Christine?
Of course you are.
I was going to try to give you an extra one, Christine. We'll see what happens with that.
Can
but
you?
and no one steals mine, first of all. But I'll be out there tomorrow for the Sox and the Yankees, of course. So hopefully the Sox can turn it around. I know that a couple of games off of last year's pace before they really start taking a hold of that's the same scenario this year for the White Sox. And of course, the NBA playoffs. We're heading to the conference finals next week. And so I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah, same here. I think the NHL, those 3 Game 7s, that should be a fun one tomorrow night. I mean, I'm going to be watching, turning back and forth from those. I think the Suns will clinch on Sunday. I really feel, I think that's going to happen. I think the Warriors will clinch tonight, and I just think that the Bucks will clinch it. That's just my feeling, but we'll see what happens there. And also, too, you got baseball. Of course, you got some series. We already talked about that and all the other things going on as well. So, with that said, you can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena_McGee on the IG. You
can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to War on Anchor to catch the Second City Sports podcast. And make sure you follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We'd like to thank Jared Wyllys from CHGO Chicago. He's the baseball writer and new Fox 32 Chicago sports anchor and reporter, hometown girl, Miss Cassie Carlson, and of course, Miss Christine, the Queen Manika for KXRB in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Christine, where can the people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at CManika_KXRB on Twitter.
All right, folks, enjoy the weather out there. I know it's been hot the last few days in some parts of the country, but just stay out of trouble, folks. I'm just saying, don't go overboard. Enjoy the sports this weekend. For Sid, Christine, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. If you're not gonna get vaccinated, wear your mask because the case is going up, folks. Just be careful out there and just be good to each other. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you guys next week.
Go White Sox. Holla!